All right, so we're live. Just give me a sec here, of course, to do another thing. And just to remind everybody, of course, if you haven't already, of course, if you can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything we talk about tonight grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and we will try to um, answer the questions to the best of our ability. So, anyways, how you doing tonight, Rick?
Not too bad. Uh, just anticipating Thursday.
Hmm.
It's just
Yeah.
it's it's a lot of things all in one.
Yeah, so I did hear back from Metal. So he's still more or less incommunicado. Basically, he did get back to me, and let me know that he wasn't going to be able to make it for the second. So I already kind of got somebody to help there. Um,
Well, that's good.
so on the second, I got uh, Apex coming in.
Oh,
So
cool, cool, cool.
over that one. Um, Actually, the second's this Friday, in fact. So, and I have you on the 23rd. I still have the 16th open though. So hopefully I'll be able to find somebody. Um,
Oh, when's what's his name? Tim coming on next.
the 9th.
Uh,
So,
and I
I don't
guess
know.
RJ's after.
Well, let's see. RJ, I have on the 8th. Terry, I have on the 1st of March. Um, so the 16th is the next open date that I have. But anyways, and we do have people coming in. So, as I said before, if you haven't already, of course, everybody, if you can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything to talk about grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and we will try to
Say
get we'll try
questions.
to answer the questions to the best of our ability. So, anyways, we're just kind of waiting to see if anybody else shows up for the. I didn't send as many out today because I was kind of running behind on a lot of things. So,
Yeah.
um,
Who was on with you on Friday?
RJ was, and we went over some stuff from Fox Feature Syndicate. When actually I did find out that Blue Beetle #1 did have an original. I thought it was all reprints, but there was an original story. It was his origin story, or at least the one from back then. So
Yeah.
um, we read that one. We read the Blue Beetle one. We read actually we read a lot of origin stuff because let's see. There were a couple other heroes that were introduced in Science Comics #1, of course. Um, let's see, the Eagle, and they had a guy who started out going by the name of Electro, the third Electro I know of now. But that Electro changed his name to Dynamo eventually.
Okay.
Um, so, but the Eagle one was kind of one of the things I picked up on pretty quick was that the Eagle, the way that they designed the Eagle back then was very still. Do you remember the cartoon Silverhawks?
Yes.
The Eagle, they kind of same design with the wings like this. So,
Well, I think you would have to say the Silverhawks are kind of the same design as that eagle because, well, he
yeah,
came first.
right, obviously, but so anyways,
Maybe they were inspired.
yeah, maybe
Well,
Rankin
between
and
that and
Bass
the
were,
Thundercats.
yeah. Well, granted, even though this was kind of a slow news week, mind you, the Thundercats did play into one of the stories I covered this past week. Um,
Yeah, I think I
um,
was in the audience to watch that.
oh, you saw that episode? That I
Yeah.
did?
Well, because I went Thundercats in the chat.
Well, Dynamite is doing a Thundercats comic.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I put interesting costumes. They're a little different than the originals.
Yeah. Well, yeah, a lot of the
But
things on the
close.
design on them is a little bit different. Like even Wiley Kid and Cat. Well, Wiley Kid in particular is different from her cartoon design. Um, Slightly, at least in terms of her her mane, her, her hair, basically. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah. So, anyways, well, Rick is well, I'm checking some stuff here. You want to maybe introduce yourself, talk about any projects you're doing, share any links, go
No,
for it.
I don't think I'm going to
What
share
was yours?
anything. But well, as most people here know, I am Rick Piper of Cross Comics, which is a comic company that I've created, which deals with characters that I've created, namely one, the Canadian Shield, which is what I'm in the middle of slowly drawing up at the moment. I haven't done it as much as I should in the last few days. Hopefully, uh, I'll get a page done by the time I leave and shortly after I get back on. Although I'm not leaving YouTube so much as you know, I'm leaving Hamilton for a minimum of 2 months, maybe indefinitely.
Yeah, you were telling me. I guess you're gonna go out to Western Canada, right?
Yeah,
British Columbia,
yep,
getting out west. Just like Michael W. Smith saying, "Go west, young man. Go west, young man. Go west, young man. When the evil go east, to go west, young man."
yeah.
I don't know if you know who Michael W. Smith is.
Oh yeah,
He's a
yeah.
Christian.
I know him. I won't say I've followed him since the beginning of his career, but middle of his career, maybe. He had a few albums out. Probably one of the bigger ones, or one that I started
In
watching.
terms of
Was
in
Big
terms of
World.
Christian contemporary world, he's probably one of the bigger names in the he's right
Well,
up there with Amy Grant, Stephen Curtis Chapman.
yeah,
Um,
at the time, yeah.
yeah,
He's known by a lot of people, older people today. I don't think a lot of younger people would know him,
right.
because there's other bands that have come up. Like, it's just like, but I think he's still doing stuff, but not quite as much. It's just
Yeah,
like, a big band that used to be around was Petra. You know, I was, I followed them quite a bit. They were my favorite band for quite some time. And then I know there was a few others too. So,
yeah.
and there's quite a lot nowadays. A lot of smaller ones, just like with the mainstream, Christian garage bands, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, as I said, there wasn't there again in the world of needs. There hasn't been a whole lot of
Yeah, there was
not whole
something.
lot a whole lot of news happening this week, but there's some interesting story. Of course, still going on in the anime and gaming world. Of course, is the
Localization stuff.
localization debate going on there. Still have localizers trying to basically they're still crying about the fact that they're getting replaced by AI, but as many people have said, it's their own fault
Oh,
for basically,
yeah, sort of. I'm not sure the. I was watching some Melanie Mac videos, sort of about on this topic, uh, but it was for a game, Tekken 8, where they were supposed to be mocking. Um,
well, yeah, apparently I think like particularly with Sega and so like in the gaming world, the a lot of them are, and that's kind of the concern for for some of them is that the I'm trying to think here.
Yeah, but yeah, it was
because
supposed to be.
because of the fact they're getting now they're starting, and I know Yellow Flash talked about this a lot too, where because they're getting more money from the West now, they feel like they have to start listening to the Western influencers, even though um, they kind of miss the
Yeah,
point of why people like their stuff to begin with. You know,
yeah,
in terms,
yeah. They're not thinking, oh, who's buying this? Oh, is it these influencers or is it somebody else here in the West?
yeah. I mean, a big part of why a lot of people buy their stuff to begin with is because it's not the same as
Yeah,
as
yeah. There becomes questions. Why are they buying? You know, like you
yeah,
should be asking yourself that question before you change much.
yeah. Before you say yeah.
But but
Well, people were worried. A lot of people were worried about it, particularly in the anime side of it, because you're starting to hear like people from like formerly Funimation, now Crunchyroll, starting to get onto the boards of some of the Japanese companies and having people worrying about having a little bit more say and them trying to censor stuff. You know, but I guess in the game, it's already kind of happened in the gaming um,
yeah,
scene where basically they basically have kind of taken out, in other words, you know, they now actually do have people there who are saying, well, yeah, you might want to change, okay, this girl's showing a little too much cleavage, so you might want to adjust that. It's there, she's showing a little too much skin, this, that, and next thing. Oh, she needs, they're doing more of that stuff now, and that, even though
yeah.
I think the actual creators on the manga and
Anime.
the anime side of it are not, they're not putting up with it. Now they're starting to even talk about it. You know,
Yeah. I wonder whether that if it starts to affect sales, whether the Japanese companies that do the manga and that will say,
well, you got to
"Here,
remember too, this whole branch of the debate, or this whole start of the current debate right now, the reason it's so newsworthy is because remember about a month ago, Bushy Road Works came out and said that they're going to start using AI to translate, with the help of human editors. That's
yeah,
how it all how that's why we're talking about this stuff now. You
yeah."
know, um,
But yeah, well, as I was saying, Melanie Mack was covering a thing on about Tekken 8, where in one of the end scenes where somebody's sort of mocking cultural appropriation.
yeah, a lot of yeah. Melanie Mack said, and I believe so did Vera Dark.
Yeah,
They,
well, probably a few people have covered it. I just
yeah.
happened to see Melanie Mack. I wasn't sure whether you were going to cover that because I know you're not usually on video games, but
Yeah, I don't do a lot of video game stuff. I mean, sometimes I did do kind of a gaming article because it was more of a localization art or well, no, I didn't. It's not that I covered it. I watched Vera Dark because it said localization, so I naturally thought that it was about
yeah,
anime, but it was
uh,
more video games. So
yeah,
usually I don't cover video game stuff as much. I kind of do just because sometimes video games and anime are kind of interrelated because you
yeah,
know you know
and comic books.
a lot of the same voice actors in the anime also work. In fact, if anything, they probably tend to work more in the gaming side of it than in the anime side of it because they tend to make more money in the gaming side of it in terms of like the money that the VAs make in terms of for anime, right?
Yeah,
Very low. It's like very, very low. They usually have to supplement it by doing games and stuff like that. They actually make more of their actual. Well, voice actors these days make more of their money through a combination of their video game voicing work and their convention appearances.
yeah, and
And
it's about the
there's a bit
same.
of an irony to that too, because as many people talk about, a practice that many of the voice actors decried when Vic Mignogna first introduced it. They're all now practicing in pretty much in lockstep with it, in which the idea of basically charging for your autograph.
Yeah,
You know,
well, that's
Vic
for a
was the
while.
one who introduced that. Initially, they were all like, "Oh, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that." And now it's like everybody's doing it now. So
Yeah,
that's just um, kind of the um, pull, as it were. So, anyways, let's see. Oh, yeah. So that's been the big story throughout, all, in
yeah.
terms of the
Slogan.
localization. Yeah, more and more stuff keep coming out. Um, one of the more notorious, localizers, Katrina Leonidakis. I may or may not be pronouncing that right. I'm pretty sure that Metal would probably know the proper pronunciation of her name. But
Yeah,
she even came out recently and said, "Yeah, we actually can be a little bit more creative because people don't have access to the source material." So, it's like,
yeah. People get access to the source material.
yeah. Well, the thing is, people will look, and one of the other points has been being made a lot lately too. One of the other, and part of the reason for the whole, and this is also part of the reason for the whole issue, the whole point of the cultural appropriation, as it were, you were talking about, is
Yeah,
because one of the other things that people obviously enjoy, when they are partaking in Japanese media and stuff like that, is having the opportunity. Okay, if something is a little bit different in Japan, there being able to go and look up. Okay, this is how they do stuff in Japan. Like even I did it a while back, where I've watched a number of slice of life harem animes that are set in schools where your main protagonists are like middle school or high school age kids, right?
yeah,
And so that made I come in and think, what is their school year like, And that was interesting, at least to me. I know most people wouldn't probably care one way or the other, but
yeah.
that to me is
Well,
pretty.
normally we tend to think everything's the same as it is where we live or how we do things. You know,
Mhm.
and then we find out somehow we realize, oh, it's not. How do they actually do it?
Hmm. Yeah. Um, yeah. So basically, yeah, and I mean, well, I know that even some of the little pieces, because as I told you, I have the DVD box set for Show, and sometimes I like to, look at sometimes what they have in the extras, they'll have like little um like note packages where they'll like talk about certain things about some of the episodes, certain notes for each of the episodes. So um, fun to watch those as well.
Yeah,
But yeah, so that the whole thing with the whole thing though, as pointed out with the um with the
articles.
with the um the whole thing with the cultural appropriation, it just
Oh yeah,
the lack of people being able to learn more about. I mean, so well, here's my thing too, because as you know, I've told you before, I've watched my fair quite a bit of like slice of life harem animes, and a lot of times the protagonists in a lot of those are are like middle school to high school age kids. They're a lot of the protagonists. A lot of those shows are, now granted, a lot of what I'm talking about is in the slice of life stuff, but also even in like some of the a lot of the mecha ones too. A lot of them are middle school to high school age kids. You know, um, Full Metal Panic, Neon Genesis Evangelion, Rosafon. Um, a lot of those, Jinky is, I think Jinky Extend as well. A lot of those mecha animes, a lot of, now granted, you go back to Robotech. No, Robotech, they are like young adults. I believe in Robotech, they're like their 20s at that point. But for the most part, most mecha animes, your mecha pilots are, you know, are like teenagers. They're middle school. It's like they're 13 to 18 usually.
Yeah.
You know, so and in Japan too, in terms of their in terms of like their schools, right? In terms of like their schooling, you know, it's not like here. They really make it a point to have their kids doing something after school. It's like a kid's school. They may be in school from like 8 to 3 or something like that. Then they stay after school to participate in clubs, and then some of them will even go for an hour or two in the evening after that to cram school. And usually, the cram school students are usually the ones who are like getting ready for like it's their senior year. They're getting ready for their graduation exams and all that. But you know,
Yeah.
but, but that was that's so yeah.
So
So that was a good way to start off. We had quite a bit of a oops.
yeah.
Did I do
Yeah,
that?
so I was just gonna say. So, what did you? You were you were saying RJ was with you on Friday. What books did you go or what did you read?
Well, we ultimately ended up reading 4 stories. We initially started out with 3, but we added one at the end there. So as I said, we went over the one original Blue Beetle story in Blue Beetle Volume 1, Number 1. Now in that too, what you have to remember too, back in the Golden Age, of course, what would happen is there are a few boxes on them. DC was another. Uh, you know. I think even quality got into the act with this. But if a particular character became popular, back in the golden age, of course, everybody was the comics were anthologies back then. In other words,
Yeah,
you have a whole and and if a character got popular enough, they would get their own quarterly series, which
yeah,
would come out like as Superman, Batman. They started out as quarterly series, and we'll get into later on. We'll even see some of what I call the super anthologies later. You know, which will have more or less some of the feature characters from that's more in DC and everything else. But Fox with Blue Beetle, they had Blue Beetle. Number 1 there. And I thought it was all going to be all reprints, but then when I looked it over, I was reminded, oh, there was an original story in there as well. The supposed origin of the Blue Beetle of that time period, Dan Garrett,
yeah,
which would have been a lot different from what most people know today.
yeah. Speaking of Blue Beetle, I just recently watched the movie.
Yeah.
I wasn't impressed. You know, the the one character was a bit cringy, um, but it just it got of course it was more the modern Blue Beetle, and they even
Mhm.
got him wrong as far as I know the character wrong and you know,
Mhm.
somewhat the origin or whatever. But it is what it is. but they did include Dan in it.
Mhm.
They mentioned Dan Garrett and all that as the original Blue Beetle and
Yeah.
Ted Cord.
Well, okay, so we went, as I said, they had the origin story from the golden age of the Blue Beetle. So now I know most people know the the origin of the Dan Garrett Blue Beetle was he was an archaeologist who found the scarab. He couldn't unlock the scarab, or he was able to unlock the scarab, but then Ted Cord couldn't, and then Jaime Reyes did, but
Yeah,
that's
Jaime
kind of
Reyes
how.
really
But
unlocked it.
originally in the Golden, and I don't know if you had read the Blue Beetle stories with me before or not, from Fox when he was originally created by Charles
Yeah,
Nichols.
yeah, we read the couple of them
So he
with
he
him
was
with the
actually
suit
a
and the
police
fedora.
officer, and of course, in the origin story, it was revealed that his dad was also a cop, and dad was eventually murdered, and so he became an cop himself, but he had wanted to follow in his dad's footsteps. His dad had asked him to complete college first, which he did, and then he was eventually paired up with his dad's old partner, Mike Manigan, and that's how it all started. And then he would also, fight crime as, the Blue Beetle. So,
Yeah,
and then of course we went over a couple of features from Science Comics. The two superheroes there were the Eagle and well, in the story he was introduced as Electro, but would eventually become he changed his name to Dynamo. There was already an Electro hero named Electro there,
yeah,
and then of
we
course
did that a
Marvel
couple
would
months
come up
ago.
with an Electro as well. So, but
Yeah,
the Eagle,
but
the
Marvel's Electro would be for another 20 years.
yeah, the fascinating, as I was telling you earlier, the fascinating thing for me about the Eagle was was his general look was reminiscent of that of the Silverhawk. Now, granted, I know Silverhawks were, as you put it, the Silverhawks were probably inspired by the Eagle, since the Eagle came first, obviously. But
Yeah,
the Eagle, now granted, not silver, it was more blue and red, as it were, his costume. It was basically, essentially, much like the Silverhawks, where it was basically a bodysuit with, essentially like a bodysuit with wings like, attached to his sides here, like this, and,
yeah.
you
So it sounds like almost could have been the first thing for the Vulture too, although it wouldn't have been the
yeah.
Vulture. Or an idea that they would have taken for the Vulture.
That's
But
possible too. Um,
and of course renamed. But
And
of course
then, and
Vulture.
then, of course, Electro slash Dynamo, or Fox's Dynamo, there as it were. You know, they really. I think of the three origin stories, RJ liked that one for the most, because that was the one that really it really did do more or less an origin story for it. Where other two, they kind of it was more illusory, like they alluded to it, but didn't really. Um, Like it was more like one of those things where all of a sudden he had powers. And then the fourth story we went over was Patty O'Day.
Ooh, Patio D.
Yeah. So, as always, she's fun to read. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
well, that's pretty much what we went over. I just kind of urge you to. And but
Cool.
I know he's busy with a lot of his stuff. So, yeah.
So what stories did you go over this week?
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. So some of the comic stories I went over, well, there were three very interesting comic stories, and I guess we can try to just go over because they were all pretty short. They were all pretty quickies. Um, I guess we'll go over those. Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, unless you've got something new that you might want to go over, it's up to you.
Well, I mean, not really. I mean, I didn't check for anything new. Well, I mean, on the wrestling side of things, of course, a big story that hit this week was, Vince McMahon, basically getting sued for, Vince McMahon and the WWE getting sued for for trafficking. Um, but since we don't, since, you know, like I'd be probably more inclined to talk a little bit more about it if, let's say, Metal or um, James Lee was on, because they're
Yeah,
more in the wrestling side of things. But
yeah,
since they're not here, well, I just figured go. I know Yellow Flash covered that too, because that's kind of a big deal, with that. But yeah, so here's one. Here, I want there are these three stories from Bleeding Fool that really got my attention. Again, they're quickies, but but this first one in particular was very interesting. Clout chasing cancel pigs cry as Eisner's drop Comics Journalism Award. Article by Avi Green, published January 22nd. So, yeah. Well, considering that, are they real? And they're talking about specifically like sites like ANN. Well, not ANN is more anime, but like CBR, Bleeding Cool. But Clownfish TV reported last week that the Eisner Awards are canning the quote unquote comics journalism category at their annual ceremonies. This is from the article right here. Comic book cancel pigs, in smaller quotes, and officially mourn the loss of comic book journalism, in parentheses, that they caused, as even San Diego Comic Con doesn't think comic book news sites are important enough to be given their own category this year. I wonder why. Rick, do you have any
yeah,
idea why that might be?
yeah, because they're not doing journalism.
Well, yeah. Well, you could argue that either one, they're not doing journalism, or two, they're focusing too much on yellow journalism.
Yeah, but it's not really journalism.
Yeah. Anyway, there is much weeping and gnashing of teeth, and some are sad they can't wear their best dress to the Eisners anymore.
Oh, they can. It's just they're not going to get a. Maybe they could actually do some journalism on the Eisners.
Additional
Would
context.
that be a little ironic?
Yeah. Additional context: the 2024 Eisner Awards, a prestigious event in the comic book industry, have sparked controversy with their decision to eliminate the comics-related periodical journalism category. This move has been met with dismay by many of the comics journalism community, as it represents a significant shift in how the Eisners, often referred to as the Oscars of the comic book world, Oscars in quotes there, recognize excellence in the field.
Yeah, but do the Oscars have like a movie journalism award
I don't think so.
or a TV journalism award? I'm not sure. I forget what the Oscars
No,
are.
I think TV journalism could be covered by the Emmys, which is the daytime award,
Okay, I
basically.
wasn't sure whether the
But
Emmys.
I'm not 100% sure on that though.
Yeah, but my point was I wasn't sure whether the Oscars were movies or TV, so
Yeah,
that's why I said both.
yeah. Well, except that they likely haven't in a long time. I vaguely recall the Eisner gave awards to um, Identity Crisis. I guess this is Avi talking again. In 2005, and if such a vulgar comic is their choice for awards, then they can't be expected to do better in other categories either. to be sure, they've never taken an objective approach to how dumbed down sites like CBR became over the years, and with the kind of superficial, unobjective approach made in journalism, it's no wonder there's no point in keeping a category for news reporting at the Eisners. Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, a lot
I,
of these sites. Oh, go ahead, Rick.
I was going to say, and there's what makes it not journalism, the unobjective part.
Mhm.
Maybe not so much the superficial, but maybe that too. That is what makes it not journalism.
Well, I know a lot of commentators have called these sites out for basically becoming more like shill sites for the quote unquote mainstream comics.
Yeah.
A lot of these sites like CVR and Bleeding Cool have basically become cheerleaders for a lot of the woke writers and artists who are now like basically sending DC and Marvel to a quick demise.
Yeah.
You know, um, so I mean, um, but let's see, trying to see where. But then, what's the use of the Eisners at this point? Either if it turns out they don't want to give awards to right-wing artists or those who might have a more conservative leaning, you know. Um,
Yeah.
and again, as you pointed out, they even use the correct term. They're unobjective because journalists are supposed to be, make their coverage impartial. Not to say they
Yeah.
can't, at least say somewhat, their feelings, but about
Yeah.
certain, but
And I can get a little bit of bias one way or another, but like let's be honest about your bias too. What are you doing?
mhm, yeah. So, as Aaron Sparrow at Clownfish TV points out, the sites crying about it are of the worst lot. And this is from Aaron Sparrow here. The problem with old school comics journalism is that it is rotten to the core. Yes, but it's also that the traditional news websites, with the easily culled and controlled comments section, is the horse and buggy, and the customers are driving shiny new Model Ts. Sites like Bleeding Cool and The Beat, propaganda at worst and yellow journalism at best, are dinosaurs thrashing around in the tar, refusing to admit they're already dead. That's a nice picture painted, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
For now, the cancellation of the journalism category at the Eisners is no loss, and it won't be when the awards committee closes down either. Comics journalism has long been plagued with leftism as much as loyalism to the establishment. And that's why it's best if they can't if they canned the category.
You
So
know. You know. Yeah. Like yeah. And in some ways, I think it's good that it's canned, just because I don't even think, frankly, even from the beginning, I don't think they should have been given a category. If they're going to be given a category anywhere, it should be in some journalism award thing for journalists.
mhm.
Not
I
oh
mean, yeah, and when you have sites like the one we're using here, like Bleeding Cool and Bounding in the Comics, those are the sites that should be getting the award. They are, but as they said, a lot of these award shows won't really favor those who are conservative leaning. Right where
yeah, yeah. Well, and I'm not even say like these ones would, but like I don't know what the journalism awards are. Yeah, but we've seen them in you know for a Pulitzer Prize or stuff like that.
hmm
You
yeah.
know, okay, you should the Eisner shouldn't have even, I think, ever put in a category for comic journalism. Well, maybe there should be a Pulitzer Prize, for comic journalism instead.
Hmm.
It, or whatever. I'm not
So
sure.
you don't think overall a journalism category is just not right or appropriate for the Eisner Awards? The Eisner Awards is more or less just strictly for comic book creators. Is that basically what
Yeah, comic book
you
creators, writers, just like like the Oscars are for movie writers, actors, and all that. Do you see a movie writers journalism or movie journalism award at the thing? There's lots of sites and
no,
papers
I
that do
think you
journalism
make
on
a good point.
movies, but they don't have
But
a
I
category.
don't remember here. I don't ever remember hearing people like Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert who were well known movie critics when they were still alive, ever getting awards for what they do. Um,
Yeah, but I'm not even talking them necessarily. But that could be another category.
well, yeah,
Movie
or
actor.
Sam Rubin here in Southern California for Channel Five. You don't hear too much about him getting any awards either.
Yeah.
So for what he does. So
Well, yeah, I'm sure that there might be awards for those people, but it's not at the Oscars or the Emmys or whatever. It's at
Mhm.
some sort of journalism thing or critic.
Well, okay, like Sam Rubin, it would have been more likely a daytime Emmy or something like that, or more of a
Yeah,
local award, because
yeah,
um, that would have probably been it right there.
yeah. Like some sort of news award or whatever. Like I don't know what they are called or where or if they do. Well, I'm not positive they do have them, but I just don't know what they're called. But you get my point. It's like the category I don't think should have even been there to start with. It's sort of stupid to put it in. I get in some ways I get why they did, but I don't think it really belonged.
Hmm. Yeah. So yeah, and I get your point. Well, I think especially considering the fact that not only does it not belong, but a lot of the sites that a lot of the sites that we're talking about that are crying about it, are the same sites that these are the shill sites and propaganda sites for the mainstream anyways.
Yeah,
You know.
but like I said, even if you take that out of the thing, should have there ever been the category? Is I think the real question.
So
Me, I say,
you just think that you just believe there shouldn't have been a category in the first place,
yeah,
regardless of what they actually did.
yeah, and even if they were, including the right wing ones or whatever you want to say, you know, my question is, should have the category even existed? I I would say no, unless somebody can give me a good argument. And well, you're not. I don't think you're trying to give me a good argument for it at the moment, or you can't think of one, which is all right.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it's the left-leaning ones that are the ones crying. I mean, again, have if anything, in fact, Avi Green, who's the journalist here for Bleeding Full, he's not too, he doesn't seem to be too broken up about it. So,
Yeah.
um, all right, so let's move on to the next article because next article here is pretty. Again, there were like three of these that were kind of interesting this past week. Even as I said, for the most part, it was kind of a slow news week. Um, so this one, and we were talking about Thundercats earlier. This is a Dynamite Thundercats #1 could become publisher's biggest launch article by John Pallister, published back on January 22nd. So Dynamite Entertainment. Oh, actually, before I do that, this does remind me of one of the other big news pieces from the anime side of things that came out this last week was Chunji Aoki, who was or Shinji Alba. I don't know his last name, Alba or Aoki, but he's the guy who did the arson attack on Kyoto Animation. He was actually sentenced to death this past week. So I guess it's just a matter of time before however they execute people over there in Japan. Um,
Probably by the sword.
yeah. Um, anyways, getting back to this article, Dynamite Entertainment's upcoming Thundercats title will debut to high sales with 170,000 copies sold, making it one of the biggest launches of the decade. The license to produce comics based on the popular Thundercats franchise has bounced from publisher to publisher over the years and with varying degrees of success. Dynamite's Thundercats already has buzz and excitement surrounding its impending release, and it bucks a franchise trend.
I'm just gonna say that's sad though. Not
What?
that they're
Yeah.
doing this, but that 170,000 copies being sold is, one of the biggest launches of the decade. But then again, maybe they're saying just thinking, are they saying within the last 10 years, or are they just thinking since
Well,
2021,
it may just be talking about the 2020s right now, which we're only halfway through. So,
not even halfway, but still, it's a little bit sad.
yeah. So, anyways, continuing on with the article. Well, and here's the cover to Thundercats #1. I
Yeah,
mean, you see Wiley Kit right there, just to the left of Chitara right there. Well, even Chitara's
Chitara, not Chitara, Chitar.
Chitara, yeah, like cheetah, she's a cheetah, and then cheetah Ara, so Chitara. But
Yeah,
look at Wiley,
Chitara.
look at Wiley Kit, behind, kind of to her left and behind her there.
Yeah,
Now Wiley Cat up between Chitara and Lino, not as much of a change, but you see Wiley Kit right. Look at how they did her mane right there, her hair.
yeah.
And,
Well, I think they tried to make her look a little bit more feminine, and obviously, I think they made them look a little older. And like, and look at the difference in Chitara's costume. She actually looks a little younger there than what she's looked in the past, in my opinion.
and there's Snarf right there.
Yeah, he looks similar, except yeah, you're right. His claws look a little bit bigger. I'm not sure that they ever showed his claws
Well, they
in the
made they
original
made, they
cover.
made his claws a little bit more defined there, um, and he looks like he can handle himself now, where he's not just the simple little fat fuzzball that
Yeah,
was
well, he couldn't even handle himself back then, but he was just a scaredy cat.
yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah, and some people would argue that he was probably a bit, probably quite effeminate too.
yeah,
He's probably quite an effeminate.
yeah. Well, it's going to be a little bit of a nursemaid, for lack of a better way of saying it, for Lionel, because Lionel, of course, as we know, is supposed to be probably as young, maybe even younger than Wily Cat.
Yeah.
But uh,
Well, because of the space travel, somehow, he was the only one who was pretty affected by it. In which
yeah, well, his
he
pod
aged a lot
malfunctioned.
quicker than they did. Like they were all in
Yeah,
suspended animation.
yeah.
But
Well, he was too,
he
but
went from like I would say he probably went from something like 8, 9, or 10 to probably 18
uh,
to 20. He probably aged about
yeah,
10 years. From
but yeah, and that's because his pod malfunctioned in some way and allowed him to continue to age. Where they were supposed to not make you age.
Mhm.
He was in suspended animation, but at the same time he was aging where he
Yeah,
wasn't supposed to be.
yeah. So let's see. Continuing on with the article here. Dynamite confirmed that Thundercats #1, which will be written by Declan Shalvey and drawn by Drew Moss, had already sold 100,000 copies ahead of the FOC final order cutoff date. Um, Now, Dynamite has revealed that orders for Thundercat #1 have exceeded expectations with 170 copies, 70,000 copies spoken for already. So they were they probably weren't expecting as many copies as they had here.
Yeah.
170,000 was. You were saying that was kind of a low amount or a sad amount, Rick?
Yeah, it's because if you like a launch of a title, like they're fairly famous, Thundercats, and it just says of the decade, so like you think of DC and Marvel characters that stuff that they've launched within the last, we'll say 4 years, say or 3 years, you would have thought they would have had something that would have done, or a bunch that would have done way better than that, you know, but they haven't, and that's pretty sad compared to probably the 90s or the early thousands when they,
Hmm.
you know, probably a launch of a title would have drawn 2 to 3 times that amount.
Well, I think the reason numbers are so low is because and I know Yellow Flash talked a lot about this too, where a lot of these mainstream companies keep rebooting the characters. They keep coming back to issue #1, issue #1, issue #1, because
Yeah,
in the hopes that maybe because it says issue #1, it will, even though as with anything, you overload the market with such things, it will usually lose its specialness or its
yeah,
you know
yeah, and I get that, for sure. It's just you would think that they would DC or Marvel. It said one of it. What exactly did it say about that number? If we go back up a little quick, just to look, I just want to get the exact wording. I don't want to misrepresent the wording.
I stand by the cursor now. Oh, keep moving.
Uh, with making it one of the biggest. Okay, so it's not the biggest launch, obviously, but like what's one of the biggest, represent? Is that like top 10, top 100, top 20?
Yeah.
You know,
Well, look at even they've done a little bit more with Lino's claw shield there too. See
yeah.
that?
And therein lies a question for me too with this. Although they did, is which one are they going to follow? How much are they going to follow the original, or are they going to go from the 2011 version, which would be neat to see because, or both would be easy because they did a lot more continuity in the 2011 one,
Well,
just like they did.
I think the next sentence here will clear that up for you then. So Thundercats will take a quote unquote back to basics approach to the franchise, showing their arrival on Third Earth as well as their initial encounters with Mumra and his evil henchmen, the Evil Mutants. Now, as you remember from the original cartoon, though, the Evil Mutants were kind of their own group. They were like the arch rivals of the Thundercats, and
Yeah,
they
they were different planets, which makes the question: did all these evil mutant races have their own planets, or were they just all stuffed on one planet? But yeah, I know you think it
Plundar.
is.
That's the name of their planet,
Yeah,
Plundar.
yeah. Like, was there a Valdar or a Monkdar? Or
Yeah. No, they were. I remember they were. I was trying to think about that the other day too when I was covering this. They all came from the planet Plundar. You know,
Yeah,
and like basically, um, you
and,
had
and, and, and
You had Slide, the
yeah,
reptilian. You had Monkeyan. You had Jackalman, Vultureman,
yeah,
Rotaro. Basically for the most part, well, obviously Rotaro had a more of a personal name, but like Jackalman and Monkeyan were like members of the Jackalmen and Monkeyan race. Slide was a member of the reptilian race, you know.
yeah. Which
So
I guess even in a plunder, what makes them mutants? Like if they're part of a quote unquote race, why are they mutants and are not the Thundercats just as much mutants? But they're good, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking this. But
yep,
as for
probably
whether,
are.
it answers my one question that was there a couple minutes ago. I would say not really because 2011 did that. It went back to basics and did that, you know, and but they got a little further on because they had a whole season. So they might be revisiting that in comic form, which would be all right. I wouldn't mind that in the least. And then, of course, we know the original series, it showed the same
Mhm,
thing, but it was a lot more episodic after the first thing. There
mhm,
wasn't as much continuity.
mhm. All right, so now, so Thundercats #1 hit stores February 7th from Dynamite. So that'll be like a week in this. I think it'd be like something like 10 days from now, basically. I think that'll be a week from this
Yeah.
Wednesday. So that's pretty much all of that. As I said, these articles were pretty short this week, but aside from the Eisner's canceling or doing away with the Comics Journalism Award, these are just release stories. Well, one's a sales story. The next one we're going to look at here talk about the Amazing Spider-Man #1 selling for quite a chunk of change. So that one is another like kind of big kind of a it's because again nothing overly controversial within the story, just um,
Yeah.
but we'll go up to that one. Amazing Spider-Man #1 brings in over $1.3 million at auction. Article by Avi Green, published January 23rd. So there, CGC pedigree grade, Amazing Spider-Man #1, Marvel Comics, I guess March of '63 there.
Yeah, 9.8, which is actually pretty good.
Mhm.
And of course, this is not Spider Man's first appearance, it's just with his first self entitled
Right,
issue.
it's his first self-titled because Spider-Man first appeared in Amazing Fantasy
Fancy.
#15.
Yeah.
So, um, that was
And
all. And then here's what Avi has to say about it. The New York Post tells of another dreary auctioning of an old classic's premiere issue. Here of Spider-Man's first as a series. Remember, of course, Spidey first debuted in the last issue of Amazing Mystery
Amazing
#15,
Fantasy.
selling for the usual $1 million price. At the end of this from the article, a near perfect copy of Spider-Man #1 sold for over 1.3 million at auction, breaking the record of the highest price the issue has ever fetched on the book.
Of course, otherwise we wouldn't be having this article.
Yeah. The unrestored copy of the Marvel Heroes self-titled series debut was purchased for a staggering bid of $1,380,000 through Dallas-based Heritage Auctions under.
Now, if I had the money, I might actually do it. To waste, that is.
All right, so let's see now. The record-breaking sale was part of a larger comic auction that included a 7.0 grade fine, very fine copy of Superman #1, which sold for $2.3 million.
You gotta love that. Lower grade of Superman, and it still sells for more than the high, almost near perfect grade of the Spider-Man one.
Yeah.
Yes, Superman.
Industry experts said that the Spidey Comics 9.8 near mint condition grade of the by the certified guarantee company, the comic industry standard, easily justifies the seven-figure price tag. Now we're back to Avi here, and this one was the shortest and quickest of all the articles. Um,
Yeah.
but but why must the whole speculator market be considered justifiable? Um, it's long come at the expense of actual reading, to say nothing of story merit. Whenever I read these kind of articles, it's simply frustrating, and as I've said before, it's not improving the industry's reputation because how entertainment value is marginalized in the process.
Um, I think I'm gonna have to disagree with him on this. It's showing that these classic comics can be worth something, and
Well,
maybe
I,
it's
I
like,
think I think what Avi is saying right there, though, Rick, is that you know I think what he's trying to get at is that the true value of a comic is in being able to read it and interact with it. Not like a lot of these people who buy these comics for these incredibly exorbitant prices like this. You know,
yeah,
they don't even really read it or try. They won't even like go and read a digital copy. They
yeah,
just they just collect them because it's cool to have them there. It's like having
yeah,
money, right? It's a
yeah.
lot of
Well,
collectors.
uh,
It's
I'm
like having money there.
I'm sure there's a few people that would do that, but I think most people are spending, $1.3 million on a comic, almost 1.4 or $2.3 million on a comic, are going to be fans of that comic or that character of some sort, because not too many people would go out, even if you're a collector of things, would not go out unless you're a collector of that certain thing. You're not going to go out and spend that sort of money. You know, it's not like buying, a Rembrandt painting. You know, having that comic in your collection, is just spectacular. Like, if either of us, well, you don't really collect comics as much as me, but if I could have, that comic in my collection, oh, I'd love it. Be able to brag to all my friends. I got this comic in my collection. Who is somebody that doesn't collect comics going to brag to that he's got this in his comics? Nobody's going to care.
Well, I mean,
You
as I said, I think Avi's point here is that the
Yeah,
true value of the comic is reading it, not letting it sit on your shelf. You know,
Oh yeah,
and
I'm
and,
sure.
and it's not just you know there are a lot of like what people call quote unquote professional collectors out there. Exactly what they do. A lot of like whether they collect comics or toys or video games or what have you. They won't play the games. They won't like play with the action figures. They won't read the comics. They just sit them on a shelf or in a drawer somewhere and let them like just sit there to
Yeah,
sit there.
but
Because
most likely,
oh yeah, by the way, I have the Amazing Spider-Man #1. want to check it out? It's like,
Yeah, and I get that sort of, but like you know, the guy that got that, he's just because he's got it in his collection. It's a bragging right amongst his comic friends, I would say. And if he wants to read it, of course, you can find it digitally. Why ruin an that investment, and bragging rights? I guess like to me, yeah, I get that a comic's value is found in reading it, but one so old like that, there's also value in keeping it and making sure it's there to be seen by the next generation, you know,
mm,
you know, or 10 generations from now. If the human race continues that long, of course.
yeah. So as I said, the overall there wasn't, aside from those stories. Actually, in fact, I went two straight. I mean, they didn't even, as you notice here, they didn't even have. I guess Chris Braley this week didn't do a indie comic showcase, so I ended up having to scramble for stuff. So what I did on Wednesday and Thursday. So Wednesday I went over the history of Walter Lantz um, production, and then on Thursday I went over the life and career of Jack Mercer. Jack Mercer, in case you don't know, Rick, is the guy who took over from Billy Costello as the voice of Popeye from, and he basically was the voice of Popeye from like
Yeah,
1935 all the way through to 1978. So, and he even
cool.
did the animated segment in the Popeye movie in 1980, the one that starred Robin Williams. Jack Mercer then his voice, did the animated, segment of that particular movie. So,
Cool, cool, cool. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man, and I live in my garbage can. Doot, doot.
mm.
Uh, so, anything else that you can think of for us to
No,
talk
not
about?
really. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking even, granted, I know I normally try to go 2 hours here, but there just wasn't a whole lot this week to talk about, anyways. Um,
Yeah,
and I think, and as you could probably tell, I'm like kind of like a little drowsy too. So,
yeah.
uh,
I'm
no,
trying to figure out.
I think tonight we'll kind of wrap up early here,
Okay, sounds good.
because and I know like Ethan's doing another trash cast. Um, and I hadn't actually been watching them. Now it's just pretty much him and Eric. Just you know, I don't think there's anything more newsworthy from it. He's reviewing, and it's like they're basically just sitting there, just you know, having a peeing contest with each other, basically.
Yeah.
So, um, anyway, so what we'll do is we'll kind of wrap this up a little early tonight here. So today being, of course, January 28th, 2024. Why don't we take a look back at this weekend? Meet history. History. So first off, we're gonna head back 90 years ago yesterday.
That's a
On
long time ago.
uh-huh. On yesterday's date, 90 years ago, the Warner Brothers cartoon Pedin' in the Park premiered in movie theaters on yesterday's date back in 1934. It was produced by Leon Schlesinger Studios for Warner Brothers Pictures. Pedin' in the Park is a 1934 Warner Brothers Merry Melodies cartoon directed by Bernard Brown. The short was released on January 27, 1934. Overview. The cartoon begins with the song "Pettin' in the Park." Of course, you have to remember too. This was before Bugs Bunny. This was
Yeah.
Slightly before Porky Pig as well. I think Bosco was probably the big star at Warner Brothers around this time. So, for point of reference for you there. The cartoon begins with the song "Pin in the Park" from 1933 film Gold Diggers of 1933. First part of the cartoon has to do with the song itself and someone loving another person of the opposite sex. Oh boy. In fact, they have to actually say that. The second part has to do with with different birds in a swimming contest in the public park pool. All right. So
Well, petting in the park did bring up one, two things. Petting some animal in the park, or
yeah. So 90 years ago today, or 90 years ago yesterday, Pit in the Park premiered in movie theaters.
I was going to say either that or a couple and some having petting and some petting themselves.
All right. So now moving ahead to 2014, so 10 years ago yesterday, on 10 years ago yesterday, WWE held its Monday Night Raw event from the Quicken Loans Center or Quicken Loans Arena in Cleveland, Ohio. This was, of course, the night fall. This was the Raw following the 2014 Royal Rumble, which saw the returns of Sheamus and there was one and Kevin Nash at the Royal Rumble. And then this is also the night that they inducted Jake Roberts in the WWE Hall of Fame. So as for the results on the night, the main event saw John Cena, Daniel Bryan, and Sheamus defeat the Shield members of Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, and Roman Reigns in an Elimination Chamber qualifying match by a disqualification. In a women's tag match, the Bella Twins, Brie and Nikki Bella, teamed up with the Funkadactyls, Naomi and Cameron, who Naomi just made her return to the WWE at last night's Royal Rumble, by the way. Defeated AJ Lee, Tamina Snuka, Oksana, and Alicia Fox. Let's see. The Brotherhood of Cody Rhodes and Goldust defeated the New Age Outlaws via disqualification in a match for the WWF or WWE Tag Team Championship. Let's see. And then, Dolph Ziggler defeated The Miz in a Battle of Cleveland match. The show opened up with the Real Americans of Jack Swagger and Antonio Cesaro, who are, of course, now in AEW, defeating Rey Mysterio and Sin Cara. So, 10 years ago yesterday, Monday Night Raw in the Quicken Loans Arena, Cleveland, Ohio, the night after that year's Royal Rumble. Now, 5 years ago yesterday, 5 years ago yesterday, the second season of Forest of Piano from Gaina premiered in Japan 5 years ago yesterday. The second season of Gaina's Forest of Piano, Gaina formerly known as Gainax, Forest of Piano premiered its second season 5 years ago yesterday. And for today's date, you just have to go back 20 years to 2004. As on this date, 20 years ago today, the first issue of Tales of the TMNT or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I take that, went on sale on newsstands from Mirage, or in comic book guys, I guess. Mirage Comics on this date 20 years ago. So this date 20 years ago today, Mirage Comics Tales of the TMNT #1 went on sale in comic book shops. Sold for $2.95 and was 32 pages. So with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. Rick, I thank you for being here. Hope everybody enjoyed the show. I know we kind of did a quickie show tonight, but just as I said, there just wasn't a whole lot this week to talk about. You
Yep,
know,
only two of us here, so.
yeah. So, with that, I hope everybody enjoyed the show, and I hope to see everybody. Oh, actually, before I do, Ed, Rick, do you want to do an outro?
No, I'm good.
All right. So, of course, we'll be back here tomorrow night with more niche news. Be looking into some stuff. Maybe we'll even talk a little bit about the situation with Vince McMahon and the WWE and the wrestling wrap up. Also, this Friday, I'll have Apex Comics on with me as we will be looking at comics went on sale in January 1940 from Lev Gleason. We'll be looking at Silver Streak Volume 1, Issue 3. So I hope to see everybody back here for that. Hope to see everybody back here every night we're on. And with that, I shall bid you all adieu. We'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.